Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's extraordinary meeting of Full Council. Welcome also to those members of the press and public who are joining us via the live stream. I would particularly like to welcome our new District Councillor for Whittlesea, Councillor Alec Branton, to this council meeting. Although he can't be with us today, we still would like to welcome him. So, yes, this is following the by-election, which was a couple of weeks ago. So welcome to Alec, and we'll welcome him again when he's here. So before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind member and officer colleagues to turn their mobile telephones to silent and ensure that when addressing the meeting, they speak directly into the microphones, ensuring that the red light is on. Moving now to agenda item 1. Can I ask member services to report any apologies for absence, please?
We've had apologies from councillors Booth, Connor, Humphrey and Oliver.
Councillor Laws.
Thank you, Chair. This is on behalf of our new councillor, Alex Branton. Unfortunately, he underwent minor surgery on Monday and cannot join us today. So sending his apologies via myself, but will be attending on the 15th of December's meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 is to receive any declarations of interest under the Local Code of Conduct or any interest under the Code of Conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. Before making any declarations, members are reminded that the monitoring officer has exercised her delegated constitutional authority to grant a dispensation in relation to the debate and voting on local government review to enable all members to speak freely on this important subject. If you have anything else to declare, please can you raise your hand? No hands are raised. Thank you. Agenda item 3. The next item on the agenda is in relation to local government reform and provides an opportunity for members to review and advise Cabinet on which of the 5 options to submit to government by the deadline of 28th of November 2025. The report can be found at pages 3 to 30 of the agenda pack. Before I open this item for debate, the recommendations are at page 5 of the agenda pack, and in addition to considering the specific proposal at appendix 3 of the report, members are asked to 1. Report and advise Cabinet which unitarisation option to submit to government. 2. To provide feedback on electoral arrangements with a view to minimising electoral inequality within each new unitary authority. A meeting of Cabinet will be convened immediately after this meeting, and the content of this debate will be fully minuted for their consideration. I will now call upon Councillor Bowden, as Leader of the Council, to present the report.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. What a shame I'm time limited on this. I would love to talk about it for hours. I don't know if many of you would like me to talk about it for hours, but it is a big subject, and it's probably going to be the most important debate that we have, because it will impact upon how our area, our residents, are going to be governed in at least the next decade ahead. This all came about in December last year, when government, without any forewarning, produced a white paper, which they called devolution, but that is a matter of opinion. And in that, they said that within England, all of the areas which have 2-tier local government, that is county councils and district councils, would be unitarised. That is, we'd have single-tier authorities. This came very much out of the blue. It's not as though local government reform isn't needed. It certainly is needed, and structural reform is needed. But for them to do this in the way that they have done it is really counterproductive, because the one thing which is absolutely certain about this across the country is that we'll end up with a worse structure after this reorganisation process than we have now. But government is intent on pushing it through and pushing it forwards. I predict that within 10 years, we'll go through the whole process again, because what is being created under this process by central government just will not work. It is really difficult, I have to say, to reform local government. Over the last 190 years, there have been at least 7 big attempts to change local government. And those attempts have largely failed because it is such a difficult process to go through. And what's interesting is that almost all the major changes, the major comprehensive changes to local government in England which have taken place after a royal commission had been established to go through the whole process of examining all the evidence, to look at the alternatives, and to come up with recommendations to government. Long-serving members of this council may recall that after the Great Reform Act, which changed the parliamentary elections, a royal commission was set up to reform local government, and that reform resulted in the landmark Municipal Corporations Act of 1835, which was at the first time really that local government was set up in an elected way, in the way in which we are used to. And that basic structure lasted about 50 years until the Local Government Acts of 1888 and 1894 came in, many of which were to do with public health and other things, and they fundamentally changed local government again after many years of discussion and of consideration about how change should take place. And that itself lasted another 50 or 60 years until the changes came in 1965 for London, and in 1974 for the rest of England under the Local Government Act 1972, which provides the structure that we've got now. This proposal, this scheme by central government to unitarise everyone has been rushed through. And there are so many missed opportunities. This is where I could spend half an hour talking about the missed opportunities. So many missed opportunities. And we'll also end up with boundaries. We're bound to end up with boundaries which will be suboptimal because of the way in which government set this out from the very beginning. And we can't change that. Government is insistent on pushing it through, and it looks as though they are going to go through with it, even though, as I say, it is inefficient, ineffective, and ultimately counterproductive. So we here in Cambridge and Peterborough, after a lot of conversations which have taken place between the different leaders and chief executives of the different authorities within Cambridge and Peterborough, have come up with 5 options, all of which have been circulated, and many of which we've already discussed, options A, B, C, D, and E. And in Appendix 3, I am recommending to full council that we recommend to Cabinet that option D is put forward. And option D consists of us becoming part of a unitary authority which would consist of Fenland, East Cambridgeshire, and East and Southern Huntingdonshire. And the reasons that I'm putting that forward are primarily that it would mean we would be in a local authority where we would be one of a number of equals. It would be made up almost exclusively of market towns and their rural hinterlands. And it would be internally consistent, as opposed to all the other options where we would end up just being part of what they call Greater Peterborough. Or part of Greater Peterborough. And to be honest, if we were part of a Greater Peterborough, Peterborough would control the money, Peterborough would control the decisions, and Fenland, out of our area, would be an afterthought. So option D is the only one where we would not just be absorbed by Peterborough. But you might wonder, well, why should we participate in this flawed process at all? And there's some justification for that, because it is a flawed process. We'll end up with something worse than we've got now. The trouble is, we don't know how much worse. And we have this one opportunity, the way the government has set it up, we've got this one opportunity to make our voice heard, so that at least, if choice is made, we'll try to get the least bad choice made. I know I'm not being very positive, but I'd far rather that we ended up in a unitary authority with East Cambridgeshire and with the rural parts of Huntingdonshire than us being a subsidiary part of the new Greater Peterborough. So that is the proposal which is before us today. The authority I'm suggesting would be named the Cambridgeshire Fens Unitary Authority, and it would be a very coherent and consistent area. However, and this is one of the flaws of the whole system, without a good amount of cooperation with the other parts of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, which will be in different unitary authorities, the whole system won't work well. If only government had tried to push up into a larger area those things which need to be dealt with on a regional or sub-regional basis, and push down to a lower area, such as Fenland, those things which should be dealt with more locally. If only they'd done that, we would then be talking about something which was potentially sensible. What we're now talking about is what is going to be the least bad option as far as the new boundaries are concerned. So that's the proposal that I'm suggesting to you. I'd like to give time, if I may, Madam Chairman, for anyone to ask any questions of me, because I'm sure that some people do have some questions. If there's the facility to do that, that would be helpful. And I would recommend option D to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Laws. Thank you. Councillor Laws, would you like to speak now or reserve your right to speak at the end of the debate?
Thank you, Chair. I'll reserve my right to the end.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Burden would like to give space for questions now. Was there anybody who would like to ask questions now, rather than going on to the debate? Councillor Gerstner.
Thank you, Councillor. The County Council have put forward a different proposal. How much influence will that have on the decision that we're going to hopefully make today?
Each of the existing authorities within Cambridgeshire and Peterborough have the right to put forward what they think is either the best or, in my view, the least bad option for their area. What government has said, and of course it's already changed the rules quite a number of times since December, it may yet change the rules again in this whole process, but what they've said is that they will only consider proposals put forward by a local authority within a particular area. They've also said that each local authority may only put forward one set of proposals. They can't give alternatives. So yes, the County Council has made a decision about what it wishes to put forward. It's not very likely to be a decision which is going to be followed by government, because they are the only authority which is going to put forward a proposal which would link anywhere outside Cambridge City and South Cambridgeshire with anywhere else. They're proposing to add East Cambridgeshire in with that. And we know with the Greater Cambridge Partnership and with the Cambridge Growth Area and the Cambridge Growth Company, the government is very keen to see the Cambridge Growth Area move forwards. So it's unlikely that the proposal which is being put forward by Cambridgeshire County Council will actually be the one that government finally adopts. But ultimately, it's for each individual local authority to put forward what they believe is going to be the best solution. We don't know for certain how any other authority, well, we do know South Cambridgeshire will most definitely vote for South Cambridgeshire to be added to Cambridge City, and vice versa. Cambridge City will say they want to be with South Cambridgeshire. But apart from that, we don't know for certain how any other authority will decide their recommendation, because they themselves have to go through their own democratic process of going to their council and in most cases going to cabinet in order to make their recommendations. But we shouldn't be influenced by what other authorities do. We should do, in my opinion, and my recommendation to you, we should do what we think is going to be best for the residents of Fenland. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, Councillor Gerstner, please do ask a supplementary.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we start the full debate? Councillor Patrick.
Have we actually had any discussions with East Cambridgeshire or the other authority at all?
An extraordinary amount of time has been taken since last December in having discussions. In December itself, and the early part of January, we had discussions not merely with other parts of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, but also with authorities in Lincolnshire and even as far as Rutland. But government changed the rules, and we soon came to realise that we had to produce a scheme of new unitary authorities which merely covered the footprint of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, no more and no less. Since then, there have been literally dozens of meetings. Many of them have been for chief executives and leaders of the council. Some of them have been our Section 151 officers who've had discussions between them. There have been numerous discussions. The amount of money which has so far been spent on the process is well into 7 figures, just in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And the greatest amount of that has been spent by Cambridgeshire County Council and a slightly lesser amount by Peterborough City Council. But all of us have spent a lot of time and money, and of course time is itself money, in just getting to the stage we're at now. But yes, there have been a lot of discussions, and what we will do, and we have cooperated far, far better than many other parts of the country in this, what we've agreed to do is we will put in one joint letter from all of the authorities in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough to government. It will show the separate recommendations from different councils, but it will also show that we are working on a joint evidence base. And a lot of that information has already been supplied to you in the appendices, in the links which have been sent to members.
Are there any more questions for Councillor Bowden before we start the debate? No? Okay, thank you. The item is now open for debate. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair. I feel a little uncomfortable today because I don't support this motion, and it's very unusual for me not to support what the leader says. I have huge respect for the leader, and I have huge respect for the arguments he's already made. But I do think that this is so important that we ought to speak how we feel. And when I first became a councillor, which feels like a lifetime ago, everyone was talking about localism, about taking the power down to the people, as close to the people as we can. And this is the opposite of that, regardless of the fake talk that we hear from government. This is the opposite of that. This is moving power from local to the highest, largest, most remote council they can make. And every time council gets further from the people, it makes poorer decisions and everything gets more expensive. And I feel that this is a terrible proposal by government, and I absolutely do not support it. Any of the options, none of them are good. I actually think nothing is perfect, but actually we do not need to reform local government. I don't agree that it desperately needs reform. I think it works pretty well. Now, I don't agree with what all the different councils around the area do. Of course I don't, they're all different political parties. But they're all reflecting a local flavour of what people voted for. And people keep voting them back in because they broadly support. Now, I know if you ask the public, they always hate their local council. That's normal. I promise you they will hate a much bigger council much more. It's all going to be hugely expensive. And the things that local councils can try, like free parking, like 8 years of council tax freezing, like fantastic bin services, like the things that people tell us they like about our council, that's all going to go away. Because a big council is not going to give free parking if 3/4 of the area don't want it. They're never going to do council tax freezes if 3/4 of the area have gone maximum for the last 10 years. All of that is going away to this kind of emotionless nothing, a great big corporate blob full of bureaucracy that achieves very little. Everyone's going to be trying to support their local public, but the power to do so is going to be hugely diminished. But that's not the main reason I don't support this. The main reason I don't support it is two things. First of all, I don't think any of us think any of this is a good idea. Maybe one or two do, but I think most people in this room would prefer it if they just left us alone. It's not an option, but we wish they would. The second thing is, and I think we all agree, they could not care less what we think. It does not matter what we vote for. The government could not care less what this district council says. They couldn't care less what county council says. They do not care. They will do whatever they want to do, and they'll pick a couple of councils that support what they wanted to do anyway. None of it matters. This vote doesn't matter. Except that the public are watching us. And if we vote today for one of these options, what we're saying is, we think our councils are rubbish. What we're saying is, we don't think they're doing a good job. All these councils, all our officers, all our councillors, we do think they're doing a good job. Nobody's perfect, we make mistakes, but we work hard to support local people. And if you vote for one of the options that the council proposes, you're buying into their argument. They said, here's 5 options. Now, if they said to you, we're going to run your dog over, but we can do it slow or we can do it fast, you wouldn't say, all right, I'll pick an option. Neither of those options are acceptable. These are not acceptable options. And I know they're not going to listen to us, but I'd prefer the public see us say, get stuffed. That's what I want us to say to government. I want us to face government and say, we won't play your game. We won't pick an option. We will vote for none of them because it's a terrible thing to do to the people of this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now, my opinion on this one is we are being led by the unleadable. And a major proof is basically what Starmer's doing at the moment. He was out yesterday at CLOP stating that the UK is 100% going to guarantee being net zero. Now, I don't recall being asked if we're going to reach net zero. We're being instructed what we're going to do. And we know who's instructing him to say what we're going to do. But for here in Finland, we are a rural area that knows rural issues. We must stick to that. We must stick to our identity and keep us doing what we know. We know nothing about city life. Same as city people wouldn't know how to run our lives. To me, the whole job is one big con. And we know why he's doing it, and that's to gain his voters for future. So my permanent answer to this one would be that basically you can shove this suggestion where the sun doesn't shine and leave us to it and let us crack on with doing what we've done well for the last X amount of years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cutler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Previously, when we only had options A, B and C, I favoured option C as the one to keep us most local to deliver services. The general feeling at the previous meeting where we discussed options, it seemed that the majority of councillors did not want to be in a unitary authority with Peterborough, myself included, as their needs are different to ours. Peterborough was in all 3 options. Now we have an additional 2 options and Peterborough is in 4 of them. Option D is the only option which does not include Fenland with Peterborough. Whilst I agree with both councillors that have already spoken, I don't want this, but we have no choice. Therefore, I'm willing to select an option. I've read the business plans and I think that option D is the best choice out of the options for Fenland. I am disappointed that this is occurring in such an ill thought out way by the government, but the way I see it is we have no choice but to choose and submit an option, and I'm going with D. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Summers.
Thank you, Chair. There was a lot of business cases with this proposal, each one of them very detailed with a lot of information in, a lot to try and read and digest. I think it's worth acknowledging and thanking all the people who have contributed to those and put a lot of hard work into them, whether they agreed with it or not, and of course to the leader and everyone else who's been putting a lot of time into discussions with our neighbours. I think it's, as everyone's acknowledged already, it's quite apparent that we're not going to have a lot of choice, that this is going to go ahead. If I were to put myself in the seat of the person who was receiving the letters, I would certainly be more inclined to support the letters that were more collaborative and positive, whether that's our true feelings or not. We have to embrace it as best we can to try and get the best out of it as we can. I think Option D, which is obviously a new option to us, makes sense for all the reasons that the leader has put forward in his opening remarks. Apart from, in all the business cases, as far as I could see, the thing that jumped out was the financial element of it. It appears to me that option D makes the least sense from a financial perspective. From what I can see, option B makes the most sense financially from what I've read. I'm no expert on the matter. I can only go on what's presented to me, and of course I'm relying on the people who've put those together to be objective and truthful. So my view would be, the other thing was that option D doesn't strictly meet all the criteria that has been laid out. And therefore we risk a wasted vote by saying option D, knowing that it doesn't meet the criteria. Option B does appear to meet all of the criteria as far as I can see. So my proposal would be that we put forward option B. I think it's right that if we believe there's issues with the way that the government have gone about this, that we should point them out. But I think we should do so in a collaborative way, offering solutions as well as highlighting the issues, but in a tone that they'll be receptive to. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. Previously, when having discussed this at previous meetings, I was very much for option C. Like everyone else here, I would prefer we didn't have local government reorganisation, but we don't live in an ideal world, and we know if this central government wants it, it's going to happen. So not choosing an option, to me, is not an option. We have to choose something. I must admit, I don't particularly like going with Peterborough, but the figures for East Cambs, Fenland and Peterborough as one council, Cambridge, South Cambs and Huntingdonshire as another, when I read the paperwork, it's the one that's most equitable in regards to the number of divisions. One has 38, one has 43 divisions, it says here. One has 76 if you go by 2 councillors per division, and one has 86. Whereas option B, it's 55 divisions against 26, which is clearly unfair. One would be a lot smaller. I think option B had about 322 residents for Cambridgeshire, whereas the one that Fenland's in would be 612. So I'm a bit concerned with option D because although the area is one I favour, I think if we go with option D, the net annual savings on a 2-unitary model is 12.1. On a 3-unitary model is only 1.4. The costs are higher for a 3-unitary, 41 million against 34. But what gets me is the initial payback period. On 2-unitary model, it's 6 years. On a 3-unitary model, it's 50 plus years. I think if we put that to government, they're going to reject it out of hand, simply because of those figures. And that's why I'm still favouring option C.
Councillor Summers, would you like to make an amendment and go for option B? Is that what you want to do?
On a point of order, my understanding is we can't actually amend an option proposed by the leader because that would be a negating amendment. That completely negates the point. So the leader's letter said that we would send a strong letter and recommend option D. So for anyone to propose an option other than D would be a negating amendment. So I don't actually think it's possible. Could be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong or corrected, but...
Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do dislike procedural matters such as this where we try to shut down debate. What I am proposing is that we make a submission to government with a preferred option, which is what we're being asked to do by government. That's my proposal, and I've suggested that option should be option D. Now, Councillor Tierney would be negating by saying we shouldn't do that at all, but the way he's negating would be by voting against sending anything at all. So it wouldn't be improper; it just would be voted down.
Now, point of order,
But,
Chairman, if I may. Sorry, that's just not correct. The point I made was that I wanted people to vote against it, but I didn't propose an amendment to your motion, so it's not the same thing.
Thank you. I do fully accept that. It wasn't put forward as an amendment, but had it been, it would have been negating. However, I would suggest that 5 options have been put before us, and it would be ludicrous to say that we can't consider any of the other options just because I have proposed one of the options. So I would recommend that advice is taken that it isn't improper for someone to put forward an amendment to change the recommendation from D to another letter.
Okay, so we're going to continue the debate on Councillor Bowden's submission, and then after that we will consider each option one by one and see how many votes we have for each one. Is that okay? So, Councillor Noise first, and then...
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't going to speak in this debate for a change, but unfortunately, things have turned out to be a little bit more complicated than I had anticipated. But I mean, a lot of my fundamental position remains the same as at the last meeting, which has been minuted. I mean, I absolutely agree with Councillor Tierney that this is a ridiculous idea, lacking any sort of imagination, hasn't been thought through. It's one size fits all. The only arbiter here, the only measure here is an arbitrary one, that is 500,000 to 1 million people, and that is the only one. There is no account of the cultural differences, political or geographical boundaries in this. So I mean, although I fundamentally disagree with the government's proposal, I do, however, think that we shouldn't leave the arena, we shouldn't leave the pitch and give the others a walkover. As has been expressed, that the possibility is that government would do what they want to do anyway, and the experience of a lot of people, including myself, in these consultations is that they tend to be tick-the-box paper exercise, but let's not be too pessimistic. I do know what two of the other councillors are going to be voting for, but that is tentative because the full council meeting hasn't been held. So I won't commit myself as to exactly what option they're going to choose. But I know when push comes to shove, what option we should choose. We are a largely rural area. Fenland has a particular culture, political as well as social, different requirements, different needs, compared to a densely populated urban area, which also happens to have over £500 million of debt. And my understanding is that this debt would be carried forward. And at the moment, we have free parking. It's an excellent council, well run, a very good team of officers, and a very committed team of councillors who are very knowledgeable and passionate about their areas. If we enlarge this council, it is going to inevitably become more remote. We are going to get outvoted. I mean, can you imagine? This is, if you like, the local version of the West Lothian question. Can you imagine someone in Breton, North Breton, having a vote on, say, Ponders Bridge? They've probably never heard of the village, or Turves, or Coates. So, and yet they will be able to have the decisive vote. So that's one of the reasons that I wouldn't go for options B or options C. We have free parking here. In the more urban areas, there is, and you can quote me on this, £2.50 for half an hour in town centre. The council tax, we've kept it the same over the last 8 years. Effectively, it has been reduced. If we have that massive debt carried forward, we are going to have to increase our council tax. This council is efficiently run, and let it not be diluted. I hate to use a stronger word, so I shall resist my temptation. Let us not be diluted by the less well councils who are also have such political polarity, they are hardly able to make any decisions. One administration changes after every few weeks or few months. Here, we have political stability. We have the administration, which is fairly cohesive. We have a responsible opposition who put forward constructive, mature, sensible suggestions which are taken into account. So we tend to work together fairly well. Whereas other councils, and I could name some, are constantly at each other's throats. They are very divisive. They are very polarized. So for all these reasons, I cannot see why the business case for option D won't work. And I would suggest that we all, because we have to choose an option, and let us not leave the pitch, let us not walk away, let us stay in and fight, however bad the pitch may be, however bad the referee may be, we're going to show our Chichilian cricket and we're going to fight it out. Let's go for option D, which is Fenland, East Cambridgeshire and East Huntingdonshire. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Meekins.
Thank you very much. I think Councillor Tierney put my feelings very eloquently. My only fear is if we vote not to choose an option today, are we then excluding ourselves from any future debate on how this goes forward? I'm very much, I came today, I was going to vote for option D, because reading through it, that seemed to me to be the best one for Fenland. I'm now absolutely not sure whether I feel I could actually vote for any of these options. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chair. What we're being asked for today is to put an endorsement to something the Labour government has put forward as perhaps to describe it. Let's say they call it an early Christmas present. And what they've said to us is, here's your Christmas present, it's devolution, but to move forward, to get it off your desk, to get it to the people that you want, you've got to wrap it. You've got to wrap your Christmas present. Now, it's a fair old size. We can either give you 3 sides of a box, but no string, no wrapping paper, no sellotape. We can give you the sellotape, but no box, no wrapping paper, no string. We can give you a plastic bag, but no string, sellotape. So whatever you do, in order to move it forward, it's going to be a botched job. But worst of all, when you look at the price they've given you to wrap up, it's a pile of dog doo-doo. Can't put it more simply than that. This is not the way that local government reform should have gone forward. This is not the pain that should have been inflicted on our residents by a government that's trying to pursue its own regional ideas with no respect whatsoever for the local voice. And let's be clear, the local voice will be lost if this moves ahead. But we didn't stand, or I don't know if anyone here did, we didn't stand to be MPs in the last election. The people voted, we have a government, the government's in charge, and we can't overturn that here today. And no matter how abhorrent we find what they're doing, we have to engage to the best we can on behalf of our residents, which is why I agree we need to put forward one of the positions. I've looked at the positions. I do believe there's 6 options, not 5. They're the 5 and the none of the above, which has been put forward by Councillor Tierney. I believe there's 6 options. My preference is for option D. Many people have already spoken about the link of rurality. There's similarity between the people who live in and get represented in small rural areas that is completely different to the large urban areas of Peterborough City and Cambridgeshire County Council. But as a backdrop to why I feel one is better than another, whilst there might be some evidence in front of us that the financials don't stack up, is I have no confidence, 0 confidence in the financials in front of us. I know that they've been done by competent people sitting in offices with their spreadsheets, working on information that they have in front of them. And they've done their calculations, and they're paid very well to do that. Another waste of taxpayers' money. So I'll give you an example. In the case for option D, on the highways maintenance, highways lengths are not available at districts level, so they've apportioned highways lengths based on population. And they've assumed that it's roughly the same for every district, and it's led them to come to a conclusion. So let me tell you a little bit more about where we are with highways and the impact of dissolving and reforming new unitaries. We currently come under Cambridgeshire County Council, and at the last time I remember a report being done on the backlog of repairs in Cambridgeshire. There was a backlog of £420 million. Now you could think that 5 areas, roughly, that's a fifth each, that may be fair for somebody sitting at a desktop without the information we have. But actually it's made up of 2 elements. There is 300 million of backlog on the fen-type roads and 120 apportioned roughly the same. Out of that 300, the vast majority is in Fenland, and the rest is in East Cambs or West Huntingshire, the ones that I would prefer joining up with. So if this isn't dealt with separate to the finances in front of us, then the new unitary will start off with a £300 million plus liability that nobody else has got. So whilst these reports are useful, there will be a serious discussion to be had afterwards to say, stop working these things out this way. Another example would be the assets base of Cambridgeshire County Council. They have a lot of farmland, a lot of the more valuable farmland is in the south. One particular site could be worth £500 million on its own. Is that simply to go to South Cambs after the devolution? Because I'm a Cambridgeshire County Council resident and I pay my rates, like all of us, to Cambridgeshire County Council. So I'm entitled to my share of the ownership of that land, and I'm entitled to say that those people who don't live in Fenland are entitled, or should be made to pay for their debt to our roads. And none of that is encapsulated in the financial planning. There's another argument about the size of the adult social care burden and saying whether you're too small or too big. We've seen up and down the country, when there is someone too small, they have trusts or partnerships where they join up to a larger base. So I'm sorry, despite all the money spent and all the competent people who have worked out the finances, I don't believe we can rely on them. And we must base our ideas on who we think we have the most common with and who will suit us best. But like I said, so I'm going to support the letter that goes to government and says what a terrible idea this is. I suggest you don't use the words dog doo-doo. But I will support option D and hope that we get something in front of government to be shown that we are engaging. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks.
Yes. When members have the option to choose between these 5 options, can I ask that we also include a show of hands for none of the above, please?
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to start by saying that East Cambs and Hunts don't want option D. So I don't know why we'd vote for an option our partners don't want. Now, I can think of a reason why you might vote for something they don't want, and that's because selfish reasons, I guess, which we are, of course, entitled to be selfish because we are here to make decisions for Fenland District Council. And I think if you were to look at the options on the table, you probably would pick option D because it's the only option that doesn't put us with Peterborough. And I think going with Peterborough would be the worst possible thing that could ever happen to us. I'm very sad in a way that there was not an option F because Huntingdonshire were bold enough to go on their own. And I would like very much for us to have been bold enough. People would have said the numbers wouldn't add up, we'd have been laughed out of town, but I think we're going to be laughed out of town anyway. So it would have been nice if we'd have done that. Now, I think what I found frustrating about this debate is that I've heard pretty much everybody say what a complete waste of time this is and how it's not going to work and all the problems with it. And then we think the government are going to somehow listen to us if we send a nice collaborative letter. I don't know if you've all been asleep since July 2024, but Labour are not our friends. They are not listening to us. They didn't listen to us on the family farm tax. They haven't listened. There's so many things they haven't listened to us on. They're not going to be like, oh, Fenland District Council have written us a letter. Let's just listen to them, particularly when they've got Peterborough, who is actually run by Labour. You know, they're not going to listen to us. They don't care about us. So I just think there's just no way that they're going to listen to us. So my preference is for nothing. The Maud report under Labour in 1969 proposed 58 councils, and the Conservatives shelved this when they got in power due to lots of fightbacks from rural districts. Or rural councils. I'm not sure if they were districts back then. I haven't done as much research as others, but I'm sure there were lots of fightback from other councils. So instead, they got the 1972 Local Government Act, and obviously we know that's how we came into being today. But in a way, while I'm pleased about that, because obviously we are here as Fenland District Council, I'm quite sad that happened, because we used to have Whittlesea Urban Borough. We used to have Wisbech Borough. We used to have these big, better borough councils that were more local to the areas. And they were amalgamated to create FDC. Now, is that a better option? I mean, I don't know. I wasn't alive in 1972, so I can't give you any kind of history as to whether it was better or not. But surely, if you were able to go to your local area and make your local reports, how could it have been better than now when you can't even get into Fenland Hall because there's no one in there working in a one-stop shop? There's no one there. So how can it be that if you lived in Wisbech, you could literally walk up to the town hall? Now, how do you get into Fenland? So every time we change things and we move it higher up the chain, it makes it much less accessible for the public. So I think we have to say no again and we have to fight back, but we aren't. What we're proposing today is option D, and we say we're going to send a letter with a few angry words at the start. And that strikes me as so unhelpful. Now, Councillor Tierney used an analogy that I think he stole from me a little bit, because we were discussing this the other day, and the analogy I think we probably both use is, if someone said to you, I'm going to punch you in the face, you're going to say to them, like, get stuffed, or probably something, even much less polite than that. You're not going to say, well, please don't punch me, it's going to hurt, and I don't want you to punch me, but given that you're going to punch me, just please do it quickly, or, you just would not say that. No person would say that. You wouldn't say, if someone is proposing something horrible, you don't say, well, I'm going to say something angry, but, if you're going to do it anyway, it just makes you sound so resigned, and that's what we're doing today. And I think what makes it worse is the first paragraph of the letter that we're going to send, it says, reform is desirable. Is it? Is local government reform desirable? I don't think it is. Because you could make the argument that we have all these tiers in Cambridgeshire right now. But why is that? Because of the combined authority that a number of people spoke against and said we should not be creating this extra level of bureaucracy. Again, people were ignored. Oh, you have to be part of the process. If you're not part of the process with government, government will do it to you, etc., 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 etc. And then look what happened. We've got this extra tier of government, which we're now saying is too many tiers of government. So I just feel like sometimes we just go along with things without necessarily thinking. Whatever we say today, government is not going to listen, and who will listen is our residents and officers, I have to say, because what does this say to officers? They don't get everything right all the time. Not everybody can, but they do work exceptionally hard to deliver on our priorities. These are amazing priorities. Council tax lower now than it was 8 years ago, free parking, and us being one of the only districts in the country to not have any asylum seekers. And what are we saying to those officers today? That we aren't going to go to battle for them, that it doesn't matter how hard they've worked or what a good job they've done, we'll put forward an option that potentially gets rid of them on the off chance that West Streeting might pay some attention to us. He didn't listen to 9 district councils in Surrey. Why do you think he's going to listen to us? Now, we mustn't make this decision because we want to feel important, deciding under a false illusion that we shouldn't rock the boat in case we look bad. What looks bad is to put forward an option with some statement at the start that would just be ignored. Given an option shows agreement with the process, and I won't be able to look people in the eye in the future when their council tax goes up, they lose free parking, and they can't even complain to their councillor about it as they're one of 6,000 residents that they would be represented by. For that reason, I can't support putting any option forward. I won't be part of this ruinous decision, which is terrible for democracy and bad for the taxpayer. Now, I wasn't trying to shut any debate earlier down. I'm happy for us to talk about all options. I'm going to vote no to every single one of them. Doesn't matter whether we sit here and say, I've got all night. I can be here till midnight. I've got time. So, I don't mind us doing that. But let me finish by saying this. People might think of Fenland as a weak and feeble authority, but we have the heart and stomach of a tiger, and I think foul scorn that West Streeton and his Labour chum should dare to try and break down our borders. And rather than have them dishonour us, we should say no, no, no.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick. You? Okay. Councillor Davis.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, Chair. May I remain seated with your permission? Thank you. Like Councillor Tierney, I don't like any of the options. In fact, I wish there were 2 more. Option F and option O, and I leave you to fill in the letters. The government doesn't care about the electorate, this present government, and there's proof of that every day. I would ask the leader, when he sums up, to say what would happen if we went down the route of saying none of these. I suspect that he will say we will achieve nothing, and that indeed we could end up with a lot worse. So I feel that we are being forced, whether we like it or not, we are being forced if we're to have a seat anywhere at the table, if we're to be involved in any of the decision making where we get to the stage of which, you know, what the unity is formed from, then I fear that I would have to choose option D, but I'm still sitting here wavering. I feel that we need to make a choice, because as Councillor Count said, if you're not there, then you know, what are you going to do? So it's probably one of the most difficult things we've sat here and discussed. I'm leaning to D, but if Councillor Tierney wants to come back and try and convince me, then fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on? Oh, Councillor Wackley.
Yeah, I come to these meetings and I think we're predominantly a really, really, really run well council, run really well. And I sit and listen. I come over here today to vote for option D. But after listening to Steve, Sam, Mr. Meek, I totally agree with Mr. Meekins. I've come over here to vote for option D today, and I really don't know what to do. Caught between a rock and a hard place. I'd have liked to have had this meeting, gone away and thought about it and had a good think about it. And like I say, if we're stuck in a place where we've got to vote for option D, then I would be voting for option D. But after listening to Steve and Sam, I'm rock and a hard place in those people.
Thank you. Councillor Guest.
Thank you, everyone. This is a very emotive and emotional debate. You all have given a good presentation, thank you to me. All 4 market towns in Fenland are unique and different. We're all different. We all have our own identities. We work here as a Fenland Council as a team of people. Generally, they get on very well together and we deliver some very good results back to our electorate. And I'm very proud of that. I'm speaking on behalf of Whittlesea, which I know quite well. I'm not going to say what option I'm going with. Demographically, for many years, and I've known many councillors in Peterborough over the last 30 years, and the leaders, in Whittlesea, our demographical position is that our further education is in Peterborough. Our health facilities are in Peterborough. Our retail facilities are primarily in Peterborough. Our job opportunities are primarily in Peterborough, and our transport hub is in Peterborough. Now, voting for the state won't alter that. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying we're already demographically aligned to Peterborough. I don't like going with Peterborough either because of its debt, its ongoing debt, and its worse debt that will happen. Peterborough is a prime example of a failed unitary authority. So thank you for that. We're all unique, and thank you for the debate.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No. Councillor Laws, would you like to? Yes, thank you.
We've got trouble on microphones. Hold on a moment. Hope everyone can hear me now. Yep. Thank you. Well, firstly, I'd like to thank the leader for a history examination and informative details about the Local Government Act. It might be a surprise to you. I've been around the council for over 30 years and I can't remember all of those local government acts when they were implemented, so going back to the 1800s. What I would say is I think it's been a healthy debate. I would like to say Councillor Hackney-Was, Councillor Steve Count in particular, taken on board their comments, and to a degree, Councillor Gerson. But I think to do nothing is the wrong approach. And I do feel that we have to register our vote today, and mine would be for D. We are unique as market towns, and not forgetting all the villages within our parish. And for that reason, I think we're more in line with option D. I think if we move towards Peterborough or any of the other options, we will totally lose our identity without question and inherit terrible debt. Nothing's going to change. We're still going to have our health system based there. We're still going to have our bus services and transport. Nothing will change with that. So I think moving forward, and I'd like to say again from a Whittlesea perspective, we've just had a recent by-election, and the residents that were aware of this approach, the local GA, they were horrified to think that Fenland would be disbanding. We obviously had to put them straight that their local councils, i.e. their town and parishes, would not be disbanded, but particularly that Fenland, as a well-run council with officers and projects, has certainly been in favour with them, and many of the residents in my ward have moved out of Peterborough to get away from the city of Peterborough and moved into our market towns and integrated as part of the community. In summing up, I think that we need to register the fact we are not happy with being forced into a position of making a decision, that we really don't want change, but if there's an option, and I think it will be forced upon us anyway, then option D. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman, and what an interesting and lively debate we have had. I have to say that I agree, government is not very likely to listen to us, and that on past performance, and my heart definitely would be with Councillor Tierney in suggesting to them what they could do with their local government reform. But what we do today can make a difference, and I'll explain why. Government has set out that in each area, and for us it's Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, each authority is allowed, they don't have to, but each authority is allowed to put forward one suggested arrangement for the new unitary authorities that we're going to have. And government has said that they will pick one of those options. That's what they've said. Now, I'm recommending option D for a whole host of reasons I've already explained, and others have said as well. And in fact, just to go back to what Councillor Tierney said about, do we really want to lose free parking? Do we want to lose keeping council tax freezers? Well, if we were with East Cambs, who've got exactly the same, and a small part of Huntingdonshire, we'd have the whip hand on subjects like that, whereas if we were under Peterborough's control, we wouldn't. And as was said by Councillor Taylor, we are a rural area, and ideally we would want to stay in a rural or largely rural unitary authority. But why would what we say make any difference? I'll explain why. We've got 5 options on the table. The one thing I can tell you, not all of those 5 options are going to go to government. Now, we don't know how every other authority in the area is going to vote, but we do know that if any other local authority is going to support option D, it would be Peterborough City Council. But they're not guaranteed to do so. Peterborough City Council, as Councillor Nawaz said, is hopelessly split politically and personally on the council. And what they'll end up with, I don't know. But what happened when they took this to scrutiny a week or 2 ago, their scrutiny, was that they recommended both options A and D should be considered for what Peterborough put forward. And if Peterborough do decide to put forward option A, and we do not put forward option D, then option D cannot be considered. And if option D cannot be considered, we will be part of Peterborough. It's only if option D is on the table that it's even possible for us not to be taken over by Peterborough. And what's interesting about this is that it's the government minister who will make the choice at the end of the day. but they will be susceptible to pressure put on them, no doubt, by MPs. And to the best of my knowledge, and my apologies to any MP if I've got this wrong, but I understand that 4 of the area's MPs are going also to support option D. So if option D is on the table, and if the government ministers listen to what local MPs are saying, then there's a reasonable chance that we will actually be in a more rural unitary authority with people who share our ideals, who share our policies of things such as free parking and keeping council tax down. The 4 MPs, by the way, who apparently are, so I'm told, are supporting option D, are Andrew Pakes, Daniel Zeigner, Sam Carling, and Steve Barclay. So I understand. Now, that's the power that we've got today. If we vote to say, however much we dislike the whole process, and we've got 8 paragraphs of how much we dislike it at the beginning of the letter, however much we dislike it, if we have to plump for anything, we'd plump for option D as the least bad of the 5 options. At least it's on the table then. And we have a chance of avoiding having the people of Fenland controlled by Peterborough. And I say controlled because they've got the population, they'll have the votes in the new unitary authority, they will impose their will and their philosophy and their chaos, in many cases, upon us. Councillor Meekins said, what will happen if we don't vote for an option? Do we exclude ourselves from future debate? Well, this is the one option, the one chance that we have to put an option on the table. If we don't put option D on the table, and if Peterborough, in their chaotic state in the City Council, go for option A instead of option D, then despite the fact that 4 local MPs support option D, the government can't consider that, they can't recommend that, and that does condemn us to becoming part of Greater Peterborough. So that we actually do have some power here, surprisingly, and the power that we've got is what government will be able to consider. So by voting in favour of option D today, even though I don't think anyone has expressed any liking whatsoever for the process that we're in here, but by voting for option D today, that option will be available for government ministers to make the choice. If we don't vote for option D today, then we're reliant upon Peterborough City Council to vote for option D as opposed to option A. Otherwise, we will not be in a more rural authority. We will be a side thought, an add-on to Peterborough, because Peterborough City Council have made it quite clear in the documentation they produced, they don't want Fenland as part of the authority they've got. They want to be joined with what they regard as being the high growth areas of the northern part of Huntingdonshire. They don't want us. And to be quite honest, I think that in many cases, we don't want them. But that's the power that we've got today. I'm not suggesting for 1 second government will listen to us, Fenland District Council, but they've set a process up, and by us supporting option D, it gives a chance that we'll actually end up in an authority which is more like, with people who are more like us, with areas which are more like us, than being subsumed into what they're calling Greater Peterborough. So it's that power which we've got, Madam Chairman, and that's why I'd encourage members today, however much you dislike the process, and I dislike it, however much you dislike the process, I'd ask you to vote with your head rather than your heart, and to vote for option D rather than to say we won't go through anything at all. Some comments were made about the financial position and about the criteria which have been set by central government. I can tell you none of the options that we've got will meet the criteria set by central government. And so far as I've seen so far, none of the options in any other part of the country are going to meet the criteria set by central government, because central government is setting objectives for this whole process which won't be achieved. And that's why I said I don't believe that whatever settlement we end up with, whatever the new boundaries are, I don't think that they're going to last 10 years, because the way this is being set up is completely wrong and will be harmful to local government and to local residents right across the country. But we're going to have to face. We're going to have to live with whatever is decided by central government next year. We're the ones, and our residents are the ones who have to live with the consequences. I'd far rather we were in a unitary authority where you had people from East Cambs and from the rural part of Huntingdonshire making decisions about our area than having the residents and the councillors from central Peterborough deciding what happens here. That is the choice that we have, Madam Chairman. I recommend to people to vote in favour of option D.
Thank you. The recommendations are on page 5 of the agenda pack. As outlined at the commencement of this item, the views expressed during today's debate of the options and electoral arrangements have all been fully minuted, and it is proposed that these minutes are presented to Cabinet for consideration prior to making a final decision. Is that agreed? Thank you. So, as we previously mentioned, we will go through all the options and vote on each one individually. Yep. So we'll start with option A. All those in favour of option A? All against? Yeah. Any abstentions? No. Okay, thank you.
As we go through these, can we be clear that nobody can vote for more than one option? Otherwise it's going to be a bit of a mess.
Is that agreed? Everybody can only vote for one option. Okay, so option B, please. Those in favour? Against?
How many is that, mate?
Okay, option C, please. Those in favour? Against? Abstentions? So do this now for D?
Yeah, D.
In terms, yeah.
No,
Just D. Option D, please. Those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Option E, those in favour? Against? Any abstentions? Okay, we'll have option none of the above. All those against the none of the above? Any abstentions? May I now call upon Member Services to announce the outcome? So the motion is carried. Thank you. The final recommendation is for Council to provide feedback on electoral arrangements and note that the Cabinet are asked to delegate to the Leader and Chief Executive the submission on behalf of the Council to MHCLG in regard to electoral arrangements for the new unitary authorities, with a view to minimising electoral inequality within each new unitary authority. Is that agreed? Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this afternoon's extraordinary meeting. I would like to thank you for your attendance and remind you that my carol service is due to take place at St Peter and St Paul's Parish Church in Wisbech on the 5th of December at 6 p.m. And the next ordinary meeting of full council will take place on Monday the 15th of December 2025 at 4 p.m. Finally, members are politely requested please to vacate the chamber as quickly as possible, as the next meeting of Cabinet is due to commence shortly.